Right, welcome to another lesson for week 10. This is for the public holiday for Workers' Day on the 1st of May and pre-recording, obviously. If you need anything, once again, you can always just contact me on 0726435502. Okay, so we want to kind of, at this moment, we're nearly at the end of this 14 sub-part or subsection of creating content. Coming out of Nash and Cullinan's Next Level Radio. This is from chapter 4, 138 to 146, 4.2.4. Plan to insert the character into everything that you prepare, as well as 4.2.5. Build links with the P2 listener in mind. These are 2 points that we have brought up just as points before in the previous lectures, and now we're just going to flesh it out, right? How a prep sheet actually might look. I'm going to show you one or two of mine. Just to go through it, and then we're going to have a look at a good long Q&A session with Tracy Johnson about how to prep, effectively. All right, so let's get into this. Theory section is quite short. And so, as you can see, just 8 slides there, pretty much 6 slides, including the intro and the exit slide. But let's have a quick chat around, construction. So, again, let's just continue where we left off. So, plan to insert the character and personality into everything that you prepare. At this point now, you do understand how clocks are made, how we can do the bit construction and breakdown from the previous lesson of, let's say, bit from a bit to bit, so link to link or content piece to content piece, right? Promises. We have obviously performances. We have the hook, the payoff, the dress up, and the blackouts, as well as everything and all in between. And let's just quickly have a look at these other two segments. Every character should have a detailed character map, right? So character, as in this case, either we've spoken about the character composite listener, should I say composite listener? Within the listener perspective, the character map has to do with the presenter themselves, the presenter, the producer, the sports presenter, the co-presenter, the contributors, whatever it is, whoever is on your show should have in the beginning when you are starting out on air with this new show, wherever you are station wise, right? You should just do a little bit of a detailed but a short character map. Who is this person? Who is this personality? What are they all about? Like, what are their quirks? What are their talents? What do they work for? I'm saying, like, in terms of maybe they believe in charity cases, like working for the SPCA, maybe raising funds and awareness for the community. Maybe they're social branding ambassadors, whatever it may be, right? So, here are the 5 ways of inserting personality and characterization into music radio links. The first is to own the music information. So, you can't know everything about every single song at any one particular time. And also to be pragmatic, you don't know what music is going to be played on your show until you get to the actual station for the show, right? Because then you can have a look at your playlist, and if you want to do some ad hoc, quick, just notes on some of the songs that are going to be played throughout your show, that's when you can go build some great, like FYI, info on that particular artist. We can talk about maybe a new album that they're about to drop. We could talk about their recent success at like a worldwide tour, or again a performance that was done at Nelson Mandela Square, or we know that they are again themselves also very vocal on social media. Made a big impact when they did a reel or a TikTok video, that had to do with kind of family matters, or someone in their family has passed away. Right. So there's a lot of things that we can talk about as the presenter for the musician, right? And the song, what is the song about? What's your favorite part? Like especially when maybe it's a bridge or it's a line that speaks a lot, like a larger narrative to something that's very important, maybe in your life, or something that's happening, in the world around us, or in South Africa at the very moment, right? So information elements as well. I've given you so many ways that we can actually just break down these approaches that we that we can take into this. If you are, like I said, like a music fundy, like you would know a lot about music and different music in general. All right, information elements. Again, across the show, like everything has to be informative, right? Whether it's an anecdote, whether it's a satire, prank, whatever it is, maybe it's an interview, maybe it's just a call out, but a well-bodied call-out, snippets of voxes or sound bites that you might be playing, whatever it is. All these things are considered information, right? And also, what comes out of your mouth, please, at any one point, right? You're talking and providing information. Some of it may be opinionated. Some might be focusing on fake news. Some of it will be updates, stats, whatever it is, uh, yeah, polls, who knows, right? Welcome and shake hands with the listener. So make yourself immediately, how can I say, approachable is a weird word to say, but familiar. There we go, familiar with the listener as soon as you start your show, but also throughout the show. We always will drop in like, welcome to the show. My name is Chris, and it's just like 13 minutes past 8 o'clock. And again, welcome to the station. So we would say like 99.2 or whatever it is, or 107.2 or 99.9, 91.9, whatever it is. Right? Take those phone calls to make sure that you can solicit information and conversation with your listener, and also make sure that those phone calls are well prepped, as we've said before. So pre-prepped off air, get the best elements, get the best listeners, as we have referenced or spoken about before. And then lifestyle comments, right? Okay, so everything around you, recreational lifestyle, is inclusive of, again, science, a sport, gaming, religion, I mean, human interests. I mean, there's a lot. There's pretty much what defines a lifestyle for a listener. Okay, the P2 listener is defined as a listener that considers you to be their second, third, or even fourth choice of a radio station. So let's say if I have to pick stations that I listen to, it'll be 919 because I work there, which is what you should do if you work at a station. You should always listen to your station as much as you can, so that you understand the brand, that you also living passionately, very, very, again, committed to, interested in, and again, you associate yourself quite deeply, right? You connect yourself quite deeply to your brand. So I'll listen to my station, you listen to your station that you belong to. The other stations are, like, if I have to pick, excuse me for that. So it'd probably be I've got quite a lot. I've got Kaya, Metro, um, very rarely 947 anymore, just because so much has changed. I'm saying not exactly format wise, but just I don't know. Don't really like the presenters much. No offense. Uh, Jacaranda, I would listen to again, predominantly, and I thought I'd never ever say this, predominantly for the music. Not because the music is great, but because I know that they play an endless amount of music, and so it's good for a time. I want to listen to people speaking. I just want to listen to something that's got adult contemporary stuff. Obviously, very safe music. And I guess I don't mind tolerating the spots and the commercials and also the ad breaks and the competitions, the endless amount of sponsored segments. I don't care about that because again, in most other cases, I'm saying parts of the show, they're not talking, right? And predominantly, like I say, during the daytime shows, so lunch, brunch, and I suppose obviously then evenings definitely, and weekends hardly no one says anything, which is fine by me. Anyway, so we'd have a different station, and then I would listen to Tux, right? Because it's the station where I started out this entire journey, okay, through radio 20, where was it, 23 years ago. So I have more than one. I've got about six stations there, but definitely a P2 listener, definitely a P2 more so than a P3 listener. Technically, they're sampling your radio station at any one given point, right? And again, once they said the goal is to keep that listener tuned in while they have chosen that station, your station, right, at that particular time. Keep them listening for a little longer because they don't mind. Like, they don't mind. A P2 listener, P1 listener, we said, what is a P1 listener? They're fully dedicated to one radio station. They don't listen to any other radio station. They're loyal 100%, and we can depend on that number, like in and out. You understand that particular them as a number. But again, with a P2 listener, it's not about getting irritated or just switching a channel. We are a little bit more open and again, open to if you can keep me entertained, that's cool. But the moment I don't like a song, don't like a presenter, don't like a spot break or whatever it is, it's just too long, or I just don't like spot breaks in general, then I'm going to switch. Easy as that. Until I get tired of listening to the radio, and I'm going to switch it off. Yeah. So this can be done by preparing and planning a show around them, right? It's not that it's going to be less important because it's not P1 focused, right? We know the P1's are going to be there. Where we want to focus on uh, creating a larger P1 market, right? So we want to solicit that from the P2 listeners. We'll do that in the following ways: front load every link creatively. We let the audience get to know us, right? We're going to take callers once again. We're going to develop great, interesting, and immersive story arcs. We'll tease properly, and we'll always contextualize. Okay, so giving them a full experience any one given point in the show, because they can tune in at any one point in a show, a listener, right? Would want to make sure that our prep is comprehensive and it is meaningful. Okay. So in your book, you're going to see the an example of a prep sheet, right? Excuse me for the voice. All right, my throat. Okay, so once you've considered all of the previous points and the content has been created, it's now time to put it into the running order. So, in other words, the prep show, okay, the prep sheet. So, different presenters, we enjoy different types of running orders. I learned and am comfortable with mine that doesn't have any, or like, uh, necessarily like let's say a top tier stuff like this, for example, like the phone number, the WhatsApp number, the SMS line. I normally include that wherever I'm going to put a call out link specifically, or a commentary link, or a link that has to do with a cross promotion to a, like a competition in another show, whatever it may be. The website is something that for me I just remember off, like immediately off the top of my head, obviously, as well as all the socials. But let's say for completeness sake, you would go and put it in there. Things to remember, I wouldn't put in. Competitions would be something that would be submitted to me by the sales department, and they would include it here, right? And then the prep sheet will look like a little table. Look at this. Right, okay. And this is where the two look the same. So I wouldn't call link one, link two, link three. I would just use the timestamps. I would include, let's say, news specifically on my show. There's news, there's no sport. Then I would include, and I say teaser specifically, right? A teaser. And I would say, maybe I'm going to play some audio there. But particularly with mine, you see that like a bit of a highlight, whatever it may be, right? Let's see, yeah, I just want to. So this is the template, as you know. Spot breaks. You don't know predetermined when a spot break is going to be because again, you're going to get to the show, and that spot break well, it's obviously scheduled by the sales team and the traffic team. Oops, there we go. Much. Okay, and but yeah, again, everyone has a certain way of doing this. The thing is, the way that you can do it wrong is that you won't include times, you won't include detail, you won't include actions, you won't include socials, you won't include calls to action, you won't include numbers. You're not going to include questions for the guest. You're not going to include details of the guest, that type of stuff, right? And you're not going to do it in order. Now, that make any sense? No, at all. All right, so here we go. This is a skeleton. So this is a skeleton um, running order. So for me, so in other words, skeleton prep running order. So this one tells you. So here we go. Name of the program, time with farmers, radio station, whatever it is, host, whoever it is, producer, technician, right? Not necessarily producer and technician, but communication objectives to engage women and youth and inform them of all opportunities within the guinea fowl value chain. So very specialized, and for probably a specific station. Out in America where there's so many stations, right? Okay, so then it will say, and again, quite old terminology, tape, right? Tape would mean something that is produced, okay? So something that is produced. So the format is a signature tune, so like a bit of an ID or an introduction to the show itself. How long will it be? So then there's a live segment, okay? Uh, Welcome remarks, introduce the topic of the episode, and we're going to mention some studio guests, and that format is the intro, right? And that's going to be for 2 minutes and 30 seconds, or are they just adding 2 minutes here? I just want to just quickly check from there to there, 3 minutes. That doesn't make any time live. 4 minutes together. Okay. All right. So, excuse me. Right. So here we go. We got tape. So obviously something that is pre-produced. Voices from farmers in the Yendi community in the northern region of Ghana. It's a vox pop over there. Now, ooh, yoink. Okay, we have an interview then. Okay, that's if it's going to be live and live. What are you learning from the episode? Do you have any questions for Mr. whoever it is? And we have some callers call in there. Right. And then we have, let's say, live market and weather information. So that's script. Then we can go back to storytelling and interviewing, plans of music, and then we can end the show with a bit of a jingle over there. All right. Gonna make more a little. It's gonna be a little bit more. So it'll be clearer, right? When you look at the prep sheet that I'm going to show you in just a second. So you may, with you're more than welcome to go and look at all of these particular links for extra references. Trying to see which ones I am going to open up here because I want to give you the explanation as to why my prep specifically is so short. I like longer prep, but the instruction from the station manager was, listen, Chris, try lower, like a low capacity of show prep, only for the reason that me, like, it's just a given. I normally talk quite a lot, and we wanted to just bring it down just a little bit of a notch here. It's not right. It's not complete. Take that one out. And I'll share the screen in just a moment. Just give me a second. So 47 was quite busy. Okay. All right. I'm just going to share that with you now. And then we'll get to Tracy Johnson. All right. Okay. So for our show, like I say, what I do is I'm trying to really keep it clean in terms of the prep itself. Uh, that's not right. Hold on a second. Where am I going? 47. There we go. 47. There we go. Again, sorry, I'm just pedantic. I just want to make sure that I share the correct thing. 40. Taking the one, not the other. There it is. Okay, here we go. All right. Okay, so let's say show 47. It was this last Sunday that I did this show. So as you can hear, as you can see here, 11 o'clock news. So I do 4 links an hour, right? 4 hour show. News there at a quarter past an opener, throw forward to the music, which is an instruction. Again, to focus on the music that we are playing out. We are again, as it said 85% local. A reminder of where we can find, listeners can find us on X, Instagram, and TikTok at iFeel919. At 11:25, I have a feature called "To Something About Something Triple Play," and then I have a random theme, right? Something about something. In this particular feature, I'm saying this week, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was announced, right? And what I did was I kind of teased to say that coming up after the triple play, right? That we do play. That's what the something about something triple play is about. Play 3 songs about a random topic, and we build content around that, right? So, is I picked 3 of my favorites from this year's um, Hall of Famers, right? Which was Cher, it was Kool and the Gang, and it was no Mary J. Blige. But I decided to do. I thought this would be really cool because like a Hall of Fame is a really great milestone. Like to be inducted in there is a massive thing. And what I did is I found the first interviews that Sonny and Cher did before I played Cher Strong Enough. I played one of the American band. Here it is. Here I just I put this here because I need to edit it down. Uh, which I went and I did for Cool and the Gang. They were an American bandstand with Dick Clark. I love anything retro. Love anything, yeah, just like anything retro. Love it. So for me, this was just it was great. I obviously enjoyed it, but I know that listeners would love to hear what they sounded like 40 years ago, 50 years ago, when these interviews were done. This one was done, I think, in the 1960s. This one I couldn't get earlier, a good one, earlier than I think it was 1975. And the Mary J. Blige one was actually done in 1991, I think 91 or 2. Right, and she was on Video Soul. It was really great, right? Anyway, and I did nice rusky sound bite that I got from YouTube. Obviously downloaded as audio, edited, whatever it is. Anyway, so what I did was again, I played the first interview from each one of these artists, and then I played one of their greatest songs, No More Drama, Celebrations, and Strong Enough over there. Okay. When I came back, finished this, what I did is I briefly, so what I've done is I always include the link, so the link URL in case I might decide at some point to, let's say, use this, copy and paste that as a reference point for the caption of what I might promote on social media, right? So anyway, round up the post feature, right? So So roundup post feature, so after feature. And then I just put in the important stuff. People like Diane Warwick, who were included, Dave Matthews Band, Mary J. Blige, Tribe Called Quest, etc. These are the 8 artists that were inducted this year, and these were the Musical Influence and Excellence Award winners, right? So I don't want to complicate this too much because we already did a full big feature that did stand out because of the interviews, because of the surprising, like I say, selections of songs that you won't hear on radio these days, pretty much anyway. I suppose Celebration might come here and there, sure might come up, well, I suppose maybe once, twice, 3 times a year. Mary J. Blige, No More Drama, you're not going to hear anywhere, but such a great song. All right. What I decided to do as a spin off at 11:40 is I found the weirdest song ever. So it was voted the weirdest song ever called Kasi Sayang Kepada Orang Chua, and that was by a group called Mawang. So I decided, and I said, you know what? Like, I don't want to. I'm not going to go look for the worst songs. There's too many bad songs, and but for weirdest songs, there's gotta be a number one. And man, was this song weird. So what I did is I played a minute of that, right? I made a minute, and you can see a play snippet. Whenever you see a little bit of the yellow there, highlight, it means to go and create. I'm going to play, let's say, something like as a sound bite that I have gone edited and found for the audio as audio, should I say, right? Okay, so then I would say here, like I said, there's going to be a teaser or a station promotion, depending on the time that I actually have. So remember, we can always work backwards, ideally. So I have obviously the same times set for every single show, but because of the length of the songs, the length of the ads, that type of stuff, I know that I would work backwards to make sure that the news will go out on time, which it always does. And it's nothing to pat myself on the back for, like it's mandatory as a radio presenter to make sure that your news goes out on time, that your ads go out on time, etc. Right? Then I have at 12:15. I have another feature. Okay, the show is quite feature-ish, right? Because it's Sunday, it's be a little bit more relaxed, controlled for me. Can't do much about current events because that's just it's the director of the show. All right, hashtag I feel fine. So what I do is I explain the feature, right? I always put the same explanation introduction of the feature in the beginning. Does not mean I say it in this way. I will always do this in a very particular, unique, and fresh way. But for me, the thing is that these are the so this is the information that always needs to go out in the beginning, right? Okay. And then what I did was, processing, not chasing your dreams was the big theme, like that. Leo Love went out and she spoke to a number of people. She knocked on different people's doors and I actually asked them about their dreams, right, that they haven't achieved yet. Remember, our station is feel positive, right? Feel good anytime. So we are, again, as a director, pushed by the station manager to make sure that our content is always empowering at some other point. It's always encouraging. It's got some kind of positive spin, but it doesn't have to be positivity, 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 because we know obviously that so it's just so one dimensional. But it's got to be helping the listener out. They've got to tune into the station as a psychographic and say, I like this type of what the station does for me, right? Anyway, so hashtag I feel fine. I think it says it all, right? You want to know like different aspects of you at different every single week. With Leo Love, the correspondent, I've added the correspondent to the show, 25 years old, very well spoken young woman, and she is a podcaster that releases a new podcast every second week, so bi-weekly, right? Sometimes spin-off content based on what she might be speaking about. Sometimes I don't, right? Okay, so okay. So then what I would do is I would go edit all, she would send me all the voice notes. I would direct to then I'd say, I want you to ask this, I want you to kind of go to this type of person, trying to find out more about the story, whatever it may be, right? But it was quite straightforward in this one. That she got a number of people, about six, seven people, that I then cut down, edited, and I put them into three clips for the three different parts of the segment, the 12:15, 12:25, and 12:45, right? Okay. Even though this looks like repetition, what I did then, and on the day I sat down just before the show because I go early to the station, is then I would make notes about the again, like my point of view, right? So my point of view around the misconstruction or misconstrued nature of what a dream is and how it leads to an empty life, and why it does lead to an empty person that's kind of chasing like a fantasy, at the end of the day. And what I then did is I redefined what a dream is, and in the very realistic sense, and how they are milestones that are actually in your lives, things that you could never imagine could happen. And it's a dream state that you're going to, like, for example, reconciling with your parents, or climbing Kilimanjaro. But let's say you climb Kilimanjaro, might be a goal, but when you get up there, like you have this euphoric moment of like, oh, this is something it's an out of body, heavenly, divine experience. So these are dreams that happen throughout your life, right? That you never planned for, are momentary, and are super priceless to you. Anyway, okay. What I did then in the third hour is I had a live interview, and I had, because Chase was busy, so he was busy. He sent me a long voice note that I asked certain questions that he had to answer. And I spoke to Terry Lee Oliphant because we have a big focus on SA artists. And I speak to artists that are not well known. They're very well known and supported on social media. They're independent artists. Some of them are very well known. Like Chase is very well known, works with a lot of different people. This is a great song. This Awema, so awesome, right? And what I would do is I combined all of them in a very nice. Oh, like I really enjoyed this, and Sunday was really cool. So I what I did is I opened with Deep Love, which is a great house track. DJ Dukesta and Terry Lee, great house track. Go into obviously Terry Lee on the phone. There's her number right there. I've also pre-prepped her in the week as well. To tell her, like, these are the questions that I'm thinking of asking you. Like, are you comfortable? Like, let's talk a little bit more about you so I can get to know you. Like, we become like quick friends. And then I had the interview. I played the collaboration, so the one that Chase worked on with her, and then right afterwards, I played Chase's voice note, right, and then I went from that into a specific Chase song. So I segued quite nicely. It was a great segment. Really enjoyed it, and I know that it came out really nice. In the next half hour, because it was Comic Con Africa in Cape Town, because we're a Joburg station, the Comic Con Africa aspect in Cape Town doesn't matter to us, right? But I'd said it's a good time to. There's never a bad time to talk about geekdom, right? And I have a friend called Ziad Rahman. He is the creator of Awali Comics. Awali Comics is the first Afro manga ever created, right? Okay, so it was a reason to put him on the show. Definite reason, he stands out. He was hosting at Comic Con. Very entertaining guy. And definitely great for a short interview. It's also a nice variation. I go from music, I go to pop culture here, and in the end, right? Okay, I have this. I've got the Sunday Revolution Evolution session with DJ Grant, right? Number with DJ Grant. I speak to him about his philanthropy, what he's busy with, helping out the Westbury community. and then I go and I will play that song. We'll do a bit of a closer at the end there. Okay, I think that you understand. All right. Okay. Okay. So let's listen to some. We can't listen to all 47 minutes. It's just far too much of it's Tracy Johnson, man. Here he comes. Share the sound. Here we go. Great.
I'll start with the ones that were submitted in advance, while some more come in. It looks like a lot have already come in here, but let me get the ones that were submitted in advance. Number one is, how much in detail should you withhold from your partner so you can get a genuine reaction on the air? Well, we talked about that a little bit. We're going to talk about that more in the next one next month. I don't think that show prep should be prepped to the point where it is scripted or you've rehearsed. The spontaneous response is fantastic, and there's nothing like an organic laugh. But at the same time, the other members of your show have to know what you're talking about. They have to know what this break's all about. We talk about that some in the seminar Harvest Your Life that you can get at tjohnsonmediagroup.com. But the key here is that everybody on the show knows what the break is about, and what I call the essence of the emotional part of the break. What's the main point? What's the direction? Where are we going with this? But they may not know exactly how we're going to get there. So for example, let's say you're doing a break about I can't think of anything off the top of my head. But if you're doing a break about watching a TV show and it's about getting in a fight over who controls the remote with your spouse, and you start into a break and all the partners know is that we're doing a break about watching TV. So you start the break and you start talking about the details of watching TV and what show you were watching, and they think that's what you're talking about. So it takes you down the wrong path and you get bogged down in details. They know that this is a relationship story about how couples get in fights over small things, including the TV remote. But then it's the storyteller's job to tell that story in a way that's going to engage those around them. And that gets into being good improv artists. I always have a hard time with that word. Improvisational performers. If you can improv well, it is going to work really well. And that's why I recommend improv courses. Next question is, if you're an afternoon or an evening host, there's a good chance that the best show prep topics have already been touched on during previous day parts. Yeah, maybe. But again, show prep isn't what you talk about. Show prep is how you talk about it. So if you turn on TV to ESPN or any of the news networks today, and what are they talking about? The same thing over and over and over and over. But they talk about it in different ways because there's different personalities doing it, and they're doing it with different guests and with a different angle and a different perspective. So you may not have completely original ideas to talk about. You may be talking about the same thing that the morning show did or the midday personality did. That's okay, because you're going to talk about it in a much different way. You're going to talk about it in a way that's uniquely yours. And that's that art of going from being that hunter-gatherer of what you talk about into the storyteller and performer of how you talk about it. And it comes alive through your own unique personality. And the other thing I'd say about that is, don't worry if somebody happens to have heard the morning show and also hears you talking about the same thing. Chances are it's not going to happen. They don't listen that much, and they also don't pay that much attention. So radio's not that important to most listeners. They may have heard it this morning and it goes in one ear and out the other. And it's not just your station or your show that they might have heard something. They may have read about it online. They may have seen a YouTube video about it. They may have seen it on social media. They may have heard it from a friend. They may have heard it on another radio station. They may have seen it on Good Morning America Today or the Today Show. They could have seen the same topics and the same content in a number of places. None of that matters if it's about your performance and not about the topic. So don't worry about it. Plan your show and work on that original entertainment. The original part of it comes through the performance, not through the content itself. Next question is, where are some unique places to find show prep that might not be available anywhere else? Personality Magnet is one. Again, take out a sample on that. We try to keep all the topics in there unique. And we provide multiple angles that are appropriate for different types of shows. But again, don't get too hung up on what you talk about or being the only one who has found this piece of content. You're the only one who's going to perform this piece of content the way that you perform it. That's the key. So don't worry about being completely unique, completely original. Worry about being completely unique. And that'll get you through. So again, there's a ton of places to get show prep. Next question is similar to that. It was with all the information sources out there, how do you parse it down quickly and effectively? There's several. Number one is RSS feeds are great. You can have RSS feeds almost create a custom page for you. There's also a service called scoopit.com. that allows you to automatically scrape stories from a number of websites and put them in your personal Scoopit page. I use that on a regular basis. I use that to gather ideas for Personality Magnet, as a matter of fact. Bookmarks, you find a good site, bookmark it, and then just scan through the bookmarks on a regular basis. But again, like I mentioned before, you really don't need those services if you're paying attention to life, if you're paying attention to what's going on around you. Your best source of show prep content, and this goes for both of those last two questions about unique places to find show prep content and how to manage it quickly and effectively. The best sources for entertainment come from your life and from your personal experiences that you turn into personal stories. This is one about how you can create content that will help listeners without it sounding like you're giving them a history lesson. Same answer. The art of show prep, the science of show prep is gathering content. The art of show prep is putting it into entertainment on the air. And that's what we're going to talk about next month, how to go from a hunter-gatherer into a storyteller. I call it the missing link of show prep. Next question is how to maintain local focus without playing favorites or being boring, and how not to be boring in general. Well, don't be boring in general by focusing on entertainment. You're an entertainer, you're entertaining, and that comes through turning content into entertainment, turning topics into stories. And again, we'll get into that a little bit more next month. How to navigate the pandemic, rioting, and whatever is coming next. How do I avoid tune out but keep my audience informed? How do I connect to my audience and deliver all this when you're tracking the same songs from multiple stations and multiple formats? Voice tracking has come up. There's a couple of other questions about voice tracking. In fact, the next one is if there can be a distinction made in how you prep for solo shows, partnered shows, and voice tracked shows. So let me address voice tracking really quickly. And I don't want to go down the voice tracking rabbit hole here. All voice tracking is recorded live shows. It's just like what Jimmy Kimmel does. Jimmy Kimmel doesn't do a live show every night. He does it late in the afternoon. It's recorded and then aired, then played back later. That's what voice tracking is, folks. You're doing a live show that just happens to be recorded in advance. And maybe that live show that you're doing is for a station in another market or another country. It could be from anywhere else. That's okay. It doesn't really matter. I think that we put this label of voice tracking onto different types of performance, and we think of it as being different than a live performance, and it shouldn't be. It just happens to be recorded as if it were live. So think about that voice tracking differently. Think about it as you're doing a full show, not a shift. You're doing a show that just happens to be recorded. In fact, I'm working with a morning show right now. There's 4 people on the show, and they record about 90% of their show is recorded, and they're only playing 3 or 4 songs an hour. But 90% of it is recorded. It's recorded shortly before it airs. And there's a number of reasons that they do that. So some of it's recorded the day or two before it airs, but the things that are timely, they're still doing that just before it airs because it's more effective and more efficient. And they've learned some efficiencies of using the power of voice tracking to make their show better. So don't look at voice tracking as being different than what you do ordinarily. Now, to get back into navigating the pandemic and rioting and whatever's next, your question comes up and say, how do I avoid tune out yet keep my audience informed? I got to be careful in how I phrase this because some of you may be on a news station or a talk station or a sports station where distributing information is really important and informing the audience is what you do. But for most of you who are on this, you're in the entertainment business. You're entertaining the audience and you're using things that are happening in their world to entertain them. Don't worry about informing them. If they care about it, they already know. And if you're not the place that they go for information, they have another place that they go for information. So focus your attention and focus your prep on how to turn that information into entertainment through storytelling. For those of you who are on Personality Magnet, for the last 3 months, we've had a special section in there about coronavirus and COVID-19 and things that you can do on the air. And very little of the prep content that we've created for that has to do with informing the public about how many people are sick or how often to wash your hands. A little bit of that, but mostly we're referencing those things to create original content. It's curation. That's part of what topic curation is about. Now, if you are in the business of informing your audience, and that's what they come to you for, and you're asking me the question of how do I keep my audience informed, especially if I'm voice tracking into multiple markets and you have to do that far in advance, then you can't inform your audience. You can't be an effective information source if you're recording it many hours in advance. So you've got to be one or the other. You can't inform and not be completely up to date, and you can't just give information and expect to be entertaining. And I'm on the side of we're in the entertainment business, and we're using the information, we're using relevant content to be entertaining. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, next question is from Brad, and Brad says, many announcers are pulled in multiple directions with other tasks demanding their time as soon as the show is over, and they're lucky to have an hour to dedicate to show prep. How can I maximize the effectiveness if I don't have the luxury of 2 hours to spend each day? Great question, Brad. And look, I empathize with you. I sympathize with that. I find that everybody who's in radio today is wearing a lot of different hats, and you are pulled in a lot of different directions. I think that we need to figure out what's important to your success and invest your time accordingly. And if you're being pulled in different directions, like writing a blog for the website or doing imaging that has to be done that day, or doing a music log, or going on a sales call, set aside the time for prep and work those other tasks around it, because prep is central to your success. It's central to your success as a personality, as a show, as a radio station, and your career. And I think it's important that you do those things. If you're a program director that's on this, I feel the same way about those tasks that you have to get done every day. Maybe you're overseeing 3 or 4 or 5 different stations, and you're making the weekend schedule, and you're voice tracking 2 shows on 3 different stations, and you've got conference calls, and you've got group contests. You got a million things that are going on that are urgent for that day. But what's important for that day is what comes out of the speakers and what your station sounds like, and having that time to coach your personalities and spend with your staff. And I think that you've got to figure out how to prioritize that and lock those things in place. And maybe you've only got an hour, maybe you don't have 2. So maybe some of this, the things that are nice to have in the system have to be trimmed. I hope not, because I do think it's important. And I think that if you focus your time and attention on those things that are important, you're going to be more successful. And the more success, and by the way, the more successful you get, the more demands on your time you're going to have. But I think a lot of times we chase the things that are urgent at the expense of the things that are important. And this is one of those things that I think is important. Now, if you're planning to, let's say you work a morning show and you're on from 6 to 10, and you plan to be out of the building every day at noon, maybe you're not spending enough time in your career. That's 6 hours, and you're working probably 5 or 6 days a week, probably 5 days a week. You know what? Invest the time. You're investing it in yourself. So look, I know it's a grind. That's why I put in there, it is a grind, and it's hard to do. And you get up in the middle of the night and there's a lot going on, but don't let show prep cause you to have a weaker show than you could have, or lack of show prep cause you to have that. Follow-up question for announcers that may not have live shows, but instead do weekly voice track shows as opposed to being on the air each day. How can this plan be amended for those folks? I'd do it the same way. I wouldn't, obviously you're not planning 5 shows a week, you're planning 1 show a week. But I would do a creative session. I would lay out the locked in features on that show. I would work as far ahead as possible. I would voice track the things as early as possible that are not time sensitive. And then I would update the plan. Let's say you do a Saturday show that you're voice tracking. I would update that plan on Friday. And go into that show performing it as if it were live. Hey, Christina, good to see you on. Christina says, does Personality Magnet lean toward a certain genre? No, it doesn't. Most of the ideas I put in Personality Magnet are broad enough to appeal to just about any show. And there's some that are a little too edgy for some stations, and there's some that are a little too soft for other stations. But most of the topics that I come up with, I try to write 3 or 4 different angles of topics that you can take from it, and you'll find something in there that you can adapt for your show. And again, the topics and the prep that I'm putting together isn't designed to be rip and read. It's designed to be a thought starter where you go, oh, I can see this working for me. Here's what I'm going to do with that. And you take those topics, you take the information from Personality Magnet into that creative meeting on Monday, and you curate that. And you use that as one of your sources of content to curate and schedule for that week. Ian says, how much time would you recommend spending prepping a voice track show, like a weekend shift, for example? Just answered that. Was a different question, same question from a different source. So Ian, I hope I answered it sufficiently for you. Susan said, how much does it cost to upgrade to Insiders? Susan, there are 3 different Insiders plans. They start at $19 a month and go up to $39 a month. Or you can buy an annual membership at a pretty substantial discount. If you buy a pro membership, you also get Personality Magnet with it for free. And so Personality Magnet is included in the $39 a month package or the $3.99 per year package. All right, so you can go to insidersradionetwork.com and get that information. Linda says, any advice on how to get that one person on your team to participate in prep? Yeah, that one person on the team who doesn't want to do it. I get it. Look, if that one person on your team is the leader of the team, is the main part of the team, might be a problem. They've got to be, dragged kicking and screaming into the process. But I would scare. One tactic I've used with some personalities is to scare them with it by showing them how many different directions listeners are being pulled today, and how everybody is coming at them from all sides for their attention. The average human being who's awake for 18 hours a day, that's assuming you're only getting 6 hours of sleep, but if you're awake 18 hours a day, you're seeing 5,000 messages competing for attention. That's a new message every 6 seconds. And your competition is YouTube, and it's video games, and it's social media, and it's blogs, and it's Spotify, and it's television shows, and it's Netflix. It's people texting you on the phone. Anything that takes a listener's attention away from what you're doing on the radio is competition for that attention. And if that doesn't scare you into being better prepared when you go on the air, nothing will. That's really, really important, and it is scary. It's scary because the average time spent listening per tune-in occasion it has declined over the past, even in the past 2 or 3 years, from what was close to 10 minutes per occasion. It's now down to 7 minutes per occasion, just over 7 minutes per occasion. So, I mean, that is that's just amazing. And that would scare me if I were a personality. It would scare me into doing more prep, not less. So maybe that helps in getting someone who just doesn't want to do it. It scares me when I work with a personality and they say, oh, you know, I just come on the air and I live my life on the air. And no, you don't. You're just coming in, crossing your fingers and hoping. And that doesn't work. All right, I'm going to go through the chat room now and see if there's any other questions that I missed. Chris, great line. Chris Scotland says, prior proper planning prevents persistently poor performance. That's pretty cool. I might steal that. That's pretty good. Let's see what else is on here. Is there a general rule for how much prep is done the day before and how much is done the morning of? I think I covered that in the session. Most of your prep should be done the day before. I mean, look at it this way. If something is breaking this morning that is so important that you have to change the show for it, then more of your prep is going to happen that morning than normal. But those events are few and far between. They don't happen that much. Most of the time, I'll make the case that most of the time on the show, if you're talking about what your audience heard yesterday, you're going to be more relevant because you're talking about something for which they already have a reference point. Again, the key is what you do with that content and how you talk about it, not what you talk about. I'll give you a great example. I was working with a show a couple of years ago on the day that Janet Jackson announced that she was pregnant. She was 50 years old and she was pregnant. And this information broke at about 7:20 in the morning. And they went on their entertainment report and stumbled through some conversation about Janet Jackson being 50 years old and having a baby. And finished the show. And I said, so what are you going to do with Janet Jackson being a 50-year-old pregnant person? They said, oh, we missed the opportunity. That was this morning. I said, no, wait a minute. Tomorrow morning, Janet Jackson is still going to be 50 years old and she's still going to be pregnant and more listeners will have heard of it. So if you brainstorm some ideas, you can be more relevant and you have time to plan and prep something. And we came up with like half a dozen great topics. Everything from, do you realize that she's going to be 68 years old when her son or daughter is graduating from high school? Who wants to be 68 years old and having a high school graduate? And it got into all kinds of different topics like that. And the next day's show was far better. So you can usually take today's content, today's topics, and plan it today for tomorrow, and it's going to be just as real. In fact, it's going to be more relatable in most cases. Now, obviously, with things happening today like COVID-19 and the protests and George Floyd's funeral is today, those things are happening today. And by tomorrow morning, there's going to be a different spin on those stories. So that's why you do have to come together on the day of the show and update. What else do we need to know? Even the Eagles did that. The Eagles performed together for over 40 years doing concerts, playing the same songs to night after night. Yet every night before they went on stage, they got together, they called it their Circle of Fear, where they reviewed that show. And they all got on the same page of what's different, what's changed, what do we want to update on tonight's show. And I think radio shows should do the same thing. You should have most of it laid out. I really believe that by the time you come into the show, you should have 90 to 95% of your show completed and done. Now you're just tweaking and fine tuning that day. And I think you should lay out half an hour to do that. Let's see. McCall says, will this be available to watch later? Yes, it is going to be available to watch later. I mentioned that a couple of times. You'll be getting an email later on this afternoon. Jen Ryan says, what is your suggestion to getting someone to participate this way? There's someone who only throws up sheets printed off of prep sites with no angle on it. I think I kind of answered that just now. Jen, I think you got to shock them and scare them and make them not be lazy. It is, it's amazing to me how people think that, well, that break sounded good, so therefore that break is good. It's not the case. The listeners now expect it to sound good. That's the price of admission. You've got to sound good. You've got to be smooth. You've got to be prepared. You got to sound like you know what you're talking about. But that doesn't make the show good. That doesn't make the break good. Ashley says, does Trello save the days so I can go back and see what happened last month? Yes, actually it does. Trello saves everything, and you can actually search it. So it makes a terrific archive of every past show. It's another reason that I love it. If you go on insidersradionetwork.com and do a search for Trello, I explain in detail all the reasons why I like Trello so much. Bill says he joined 25 minutes late. Is it being recorded? Yes, it is being recorded. You'll be getting an email later on today. See, several of you answered that. Let's see. Lori, hey, Lori, up in Calgary. Great to have you on. She says the world is changing every 3 seconds. It sometimes feels hard to plan more than a day in advance. Tips? Yeah, I think I've addressed that a few times. Most of your content is going to be original, unique entertainment that's based on what's happening around us. It's not going to depend on being up to the minute and what's happening now, unless Lori's part of the show in Calgary with Mookie, Billy Joe, and Lori, and they do news twice an hour. And Billy Joe does the news, and she's terrific in delivering that newscast. And that's what needs to be up to the minute, and that's what needs to be topical and timely. And they do serve as an information source in their market. But that's the only part of that show that really needs to be up to the minute. You don't want to sound like you're completely out of touch or that you're irrelevant. But you can't be talking about something that happened 3 days ago like it happened yesterday. But most of the time, you're going to be turning that into original, unique entertainment. A couple more questions about how you get other people on board, like your co-host. Set some rules. Now, I put in the first section about setting guidelines for show prep, and I think all of those guidelines are important. But you may not be able to enforce all those guidelines at once. If you can't, just start with a couple of simple rules that we're going to show prep. We're going to do the creative session on Monday. Everybody needs to come and everybody needs to be prepared. Everyone needs to participate, and nobody can come in and say they've got nothing going on. All right, just set that rule and don't do the rest of the stuff. And then as you start getting momentum with one thing, start adding more. Start adding more guidelines, more rules, evolve it. But get everyone to commit to doing as much as you can get them to commit to. Mackenzie says, great webinar. Is there a sample of your prep that we can see? I think you're talking about Personality Magnet. Yes, if you go to personalitymagnet.com, you can take out a trial service. You can get 2 weeks for $1. And at the end of the 2 weeks, if you don't like it, you can cancel. And you're only out $1. If you do like it and want to continue month to month, it'll start charging you $19 a month after the 2 weeks. If you want to take advantage of the annual offer that I made, the $74.50 for a year, just cancel the trial and then buy the annual and use that Prep My Show discount code. Blaine Fowler, good to hear from you. Are there any certain topics that are always a win, like money, relationships, and current events? Yeah, there's 7, Blaine, and that's a whole different webinar. And if you go into the webinar Harvest Your Life, I've got the 7 topics that you can't miss with, but I want you to be careful not to turn those topics you can't miss with into information from those topics. For example, one of them is money. Money or finances. You can't miss with money as a topic, but that doesn't mean you give tips about how to save money or how to spend money or where you can get the best discounts. It means it's topics about spending money and about how you turn those topics into stories. And I go into that in great detail in the Harvest Your Life seminar. And also there's a Harvest Your Life ebook that you can download as well. Greg says, how do you define leftovers? It feels like they might teeter on the edge of secondary list material. Yeah, it is actually, Greg. One of the things that you find as you prep more and you're properly prepared going into a show is that that things happen during a show and you respond spontaneously. One topic might take off, and instead of you had planned to do it for one break and it takes up 3. That means 2 pieces of A material, because remember, we're only scheduling A material. B material and C material doesn't get on the air. So if you're only scheduling A material and you have to bump a couple of things because a topic takes off and you want to stretch that to 2 or 3 breaks, or you want to repeat it later on in the show, at the end of the show, you might have 3 or 4 segments that you didn't have time to get to, but they're all A material. So now you've got 4 pieces of A material that you can say, is this better than what I had planned for tomorrow? Because it's already prepped. And you can just slot it in for the next day. So that's how I define leftovers. And then you look at it and say, okay, well, I've got 4 pieces of A material here, and I've got all A material scheduled for tomorrow. What's the A minus stuff? And what's the A plus stuff? And you end up leaving some really good stuff on the cutting room floor. Now, here's an idea of what you can do with that. You can take those leftovers and turn it into an online video with bonus content that you didn't have time for in the show that day. It's a bonus section, and it makes great video that promotes the show. Namibia is on, saying thank you for the webinar. I'm running and programming 4 commercial stations at one time. It's quite stressful, Robin. I get it. I can't imagine trying to run 4 of those. A lot of you giving some very nice comments. Thank you for that. Tim says, is that a picture of your wife, or did it come with the frame? Yeah, that's my wife. That's my wife, Cynthia, in the background. Thank you for asking. She's terrific. Talk more about the process of the Monday creative meeting, the best way to lead the meeting, any other templates that you use within. Yeah, I've got some templates that I use, but I don't like them that much. John, there's brainstorming templates, and if you do a Google search for brainstorming templates, you'll find some. But in sharing the ones that I use, I don't even like them that much, and I found that everybody kind of finds their own system. One system that some shows like is taking all those ideas, putting it on a sheet of paper or on a slip, maybe a Post-it note, where you write down the idea, the topic, the idea, the execution notes on it, and make some notes on it, and then throw them in a bucket and have like 3 buckets. I call it buckets of content. And one bucket is the use now bucket. You've got to use it in the next few days because it's time sensitive. Another one is somewhat time sensitive that you've got to use in the next week or so you can prioritize those first 2. And the third one is evergreen content. And just throw all those slips in the bucket, and that bucket starts to fill up, and you've got all these ideas. Some shows do it on a whiteboard in their office, and they fill up that whiteboard with ideas, and as new ideas come in that they get excited about, they take the old ideas down. The best one that I like is using Trello. You can start a board on Trello, a list that is all about new ideas for show prep. And so as a creative idea comes in, you put that into a card, and then you open the card and you type all the details into that card. And as the idea gets developed and people have different ideas of what they can do with it, they can come in anytime and add to that card. And when it's time to schedule it, you just drag that card into the day's show that you want that to be scheduled. So Trello is fantastic if you get into using Trello. So if you use Trello, by the way, there is a learning curve. It's going to take you a little bit of time to figure out the best way to use it and to get to that. But I love it. Mikey says, big challenges. What on earth am I going to talk about? I know this will be covered next month, but this is really hard. My life seems the same every day with nothing new to share. Mikey, I'm going to recommend 2 things for you. Watch my webinar, 3 things. Watch my webinar, Harvest Your Life. It's available now at tjohnsonmediagroup.com. I'm going to recommend 4 things. Watch Harvest Your Life. Download the ebook that goes with it, Harvest Your Life. There's a small charge for both of them, by the way, but very affordable and very worthwhile. Next thing is make sure you come to next month's webinar, because we'll go into more detail on that. And the 4th thing is I'm going to recommend a book to you called Long Story Short. Long Story Short is a terrific book, and it is from a stage storyteller, and it is absolutely terrific. And I think that those 4 things might get you on track. And then the 5 things. The 5th thing is work with other people. The hardest part of show prep that I found, the hardest part of doing anything creative is the redundancy of it, because you start falling into patterns and you go, I've got nothing. Every day starts to be the same. So change your environment, change the people that you're working with, change the people in your surroundings, bring different people into it, and it'll jumpstart you. Another thing is get out and do something different on a regular basis. 6 things. Another good source for finding things to talk about is watch Steve Martin's masterclass on stand-up comedy. It's at masterclass.com. It's fantastic. I cover some things on that in several different webinars, and I've also got an article about Steve Martin up on my website at tjohnsonmediagroup.com that you can read, and a lot of it comes from what I learned in watching that masterclass. Jen says, how long is the discount available on Personality Magnet? It's available through a week from Sunday. So I'm not sure what's today. Today's the 9th, so that would be June 21st. It's available through June 21st. Darren says, tell me about the guitar that's behind you. It's right above my wife. It's a Rolling Stones guitar. Back in the 90s, when the Stones were trying to make one of their comebacks, they came out with an album that was actually pretty good, and radio stations wouldn't play it, and I played it a lot. Stones were coming out on tour, and I got a call from their manager one day who said, when the band is in town, they know what you've been doing, they know how you've been playing it, they followed your recommendations about the song, and Mick would like to meet you and thank you. And I'm like, wow, right? So they were in San Diego. I went to meet them at Qualcomm Stadium, and Mick came out and sat down with my wife and me for about half an hour, and we just hung out and talked. It happened to be Charlie Watts' birthday, and they were having his birthday party backstage in the bowels of Qualcomm Stadium. And Mick invited us to go over to Charlie's birthday party as well, which was fantastic. And he gave me the guitar autographed by the band at the end of that. So one of the highlights. Mikey says, in times like this where almost all of the news is polarizing, how do I find topics that aren't going to get me fired? I think you can talk about things that are controversial without being part of the controversy. And the easiest part of that is what Mr. Rogers said is find the helpers, find the good news stories, find things that people can agree on, because you're not going to change people's life about any of this, or change their minds or change their lives about any of this, but you can draw on it and be relevant. When I work with personalities, and we usually create a character brand profile. It's one of the first things we do with new shows. We identify what traits are important to to building their brand. And when you have anything controversial or really any topic, you want to channel the show prep through traits in your character profile. And if that character profile is very well defined, that's really easy to do. In fact, it's a great way to create 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different stories from the same topic. You just pick a different aspect of your character profile to create the content through. And that acts as a filter, and it changes the orientation of what you're creating. And that'll help you get more creative as well. So that's a 6th thing I would recommend for finding things to talk about is build a character brand profile. I've got the whole process on my website, tjohnsonmediagroup.com. Do a search for build a 5-star character brand, a 5-star character brand. And you'll see an ebook about it. And there's also a webinar that's all about that. And I'll probably be bringing that back and updating that and doing that this fall again if you want to wait and come online and watch that for free. Sean says, how can prep be applied with PPM for evening urban formats with less talk time? Sean, I get this question a lot. How can I be creative when I don't have much time to talk? I will say this. Your responsibility as an artist is to make great art on whatever canvas it is that you're given. And maybe the canvas that you're provided by your format is restricting you to a canvas the size of a postage stamp. Be as creative as you can on the size of that postage stamp. And the more creative you are, and the smaller your canvas, the more creative you have to be. Ronald Reagan once said, was asked to speak at for a fundraiser, and he said, well, how long do you want me to talk? And they said, well, we don't know yet. Does it really matter? And he says, well, yeah, it makes a big difference. He said, if you want me to talk for an hour, I'm ready now. If you want me to talk for 10 minutes, I'm going to need some time to prepare. And it's the same with content. It's the same with personalities. The shorter your window for performance, the more important the time in preparation to make those moments count, to make that art count. So that's what I'd say about that, Sean. And I think if you want to get some more about prep and about how you can adapt these concepts to smaller windows of opportunity to perform, there's a ton of that on insidersradionetwork.com, and go into the personality and then prep part of it. Let's see. Frank says, what was the code for Personality Magnet? It was Prep My Show. Prep My Show, Frank. I think that's up on, is that still up on the site? It's not. The file is up on there right now. Let me put that back up. So anybody who wants the Personality Magnet for 50% off, I'm going to put that up right now, and you'll see the code. It's Get My Prep, not Prep My Show. It's Get My Prep. So use that code, Get My Prep, and you should be able to get that for 50% off. If you have any trouble with it, send me an email, tracy@tjohnsonmediagroup.com, and I'll get that for you. Mike says, my wife hates that I'm always on and recording live so I can talk about it on the air. Hey, Mike, here's a tip for you. Most everybody has a recording app on their phone, and it's really easy to record now, or a notes app. Just make bullet points to yourself. Don't develop at all. Just get a system. And here again, Trello's fantastic. With Trello, with the Trello app on your phone, you can speak into it, or you can cut and paste, and you hit one button and it uploads it to your show prep Trello board. So it's sitting right there for you to develop later. And usually you just don't want to forget whatever idea it was that you had, because you're going to come back and develop it later. So you can spend less time of your personal time prepping and recording your life, and just make little bullet points and come back to it later. We are a small, Bridget says, we're a small staff. Many shows are solo. What do you offer that's small staff and limited budget? Small staff, limited budget, buy Personality Magnet. $75 a year, $74.50 a year with the discount code. I mean, how can you go wrong, right? That's a almost non-existent budget. It's the cheapest thing that's out there. And honestly, I don't do it for the money. I do it because it's a way of helping personalities who don't have the budgets from their radio stations anymore. So that's that to me is part of the important part of it. Let's see, what else do we have here? Will the Q&A be part of the recording? Yes, it will. It'll be part of the recording that you get this afternoon. I only get.
Okay, long session there, a lot of information there. I know that you learned a lot from that as well. At any one point, just to punch Tracy, you can go find Tracy Johnson on YouTube and subscribe, right? It's just so that you can always be updated as a number of different things that him and so many more other radio professionals, like your lecturers, hint, hint, right, are talking about. I'm going to end the lecture there. Have yourself a fantastic week. I'm going to say year, not yet. And then we will see you in class, please, live next week. Have a great week.